Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about episode 3 of the Orville. This content contains major spoilers for everything within everything within season 1, episode 3 of the Orville, About a Girl. All right, so episode 3, About a Girl, was absolutely fantastic. It's the best episode yet. The Orville has really hit the ground running. It is just like jump from the gates, and it is and here's what the Orville is. Okay, so one, the Orville is not a parody of Star Trek. The Orville is an intellectual property that has used parody to make relaunching Star Trek Next Generation in 2017 by a company that does not own Star Trek Next Generation legal. It's absolutely brilliant. I've never seen anything like it. It's a brand masquerade, and it is absolutely brilliant. It's a genre change. I don't think anybody's ever done this in this way, right? This would be like if somebody relaunched Star Wars on television without owning the brand, right? And had Jedis and princesses and pilots and everything, but all the names were just slightly askew. It's absolutely brilliant. This is amazing work by Seth MacFarlane, and if you're not watching this, you should watch this for different reasons. One, I think it's an enjoyable show. Two, it's absolutely brilliant as Star Trek. And guess what? I have immense sympathy for CBS. And the reason why is I watched Orville last night on Sunday night. I watched episode 3 of Orville on Sunday night exactly while other people were watching the new Star Trek. Now, I'm a fan of Star Trek. I've seen every single episode, over 700 episodes. So why wasn't I watching the new Star Trek? Well, the reason why is it's behind a paywall, right? Which is insane. So Orville is more Star Trek than the actual Star Trek Discovery. And the reason why is Gene Roddenberry, the idea of Star Trek was to present ideas and have an open and honest discussion about those ideas. How can you have an open and honest discussion when your content is behind a paywall? It's crazy, right? So like, even in the launch of the product, CBS is showing that they don't know what they own, right? They don't really get Star Trek at all, right? And so Orville is more Star Trek than Star Trek. And I do have incredible sympathy for Star Trek, because I really feel Star Trek Discovery is irrelevant. Anybody who wanted a new Star Trek show, you got it. It's called The Orville. Go watch it, right? And anybody who's interested in Star Trek Discovery, have fun watching this show that 4 people are going to watch, because it's behind this ridiculous paywall. And I mean a super exclusionary paywall. It is a paywall that lets you watch everything that's on one channel, one network channel. That's insane. That is just crazy, in my opinion. And I have the funds to actually get that channel, and I'm a Star Trek fan, and they couldn't sell me on this. The number of people who are going to sign up to this are so ridiculously small that I feel like this is just an absolutely terrible business decision on the part of CBS. Now, maybe I'll be wrong, and just millions of people will sign up for CBS All Access, but I think this was a terrible, terrible idea. And I feel like Orville is going to eat their lunch. I think it already is. And it's strange, right? Okay. All right. So let's talk about episode 3 of the Orville. So this was called About a Girl, and Bortus, he is the second officer of the Orville. Kelly is the first officer. Ed is the captain. And so Bortus has had a child. Bortus is a Moclan. He is from the race that hails from the home planet of Moclus. Well, on the home planet of Moclus, they do not have female children. They have used science to make sure that their entire gender is female. Okay? And so Bortus, he has a child with his mate Clyden, who is female. So Bortus says, okay, well, whatever, we're going to have the child, we're going to do a procedure to the child, which will make this child male, right? He goes to the ship's doctor. Ship's doctor says, absolutely not. What you're asking is completely unethical, and no ethical doctor would do this. I 100% agree with that Federation doctor. Okay. So, and I just want to stop and say here, like, this is amazing. Like, this show totally gets Star Trek. It's like, let's take topics from today that are being discussed, let's put them into a fictional area and give us some space to actually talk about these subjects, right? Which is fascinating. It's really fascinating, and it's incredibly well executed, right? By the way, this is a very, very serious episode. The idea that this is parody is completely gone. Like, they are throwing in, like a minimal number of jokes into each show to show that this is parody just for legal purposes, but what is being done with the Orville is just unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. It really is incredible. All right, so, and also I'll tell you, right, not only is it incredible, but it has so much potential. I am ready for the Orville equivalent of Star Wars. I want them to do with Star Wars what they've done with the Orville. It's brilliant. It's an absolutely brilliant idea. Really, really something. It's pretty amazing, actually. All right, so Bortus is then upset, and he says, okay, well, and then he makes a call from their Federation ship out to a Moclus ship saying, hey, come on over, Moclus ship. I want you to take my child and do this procedure that the Federation is refusing to do. Well, the captain says, you're way out of line. You didn't have a right to reach out and go behind my back. And also, that child is on my ship, and that child's safety is my responsibility, right? So now there's going to be a hearing on Moclus to determine the fate of the child, whether the procedure is done with the child. Kelly goes into a debate. Kelly is chosen, the first officer is chosen to Bortus chooses Ed, the captain. The captain says, I'm not going to be a good advocate for you against the Moclus representative to say that your child should be male, or that it should be at this point Bortus wants his child to be female. Clyden, his mate, wants it to be male, and everybody wants a different thing. The Orville wants the child to be female, remain female. The Moclus race wants the child to be made male. It's a whole big situation, and it's tough, right? And I mean, there are ships with lasers. People could die if this goes poorly, right? So the Moclus say, hey, let's handle this peacefully. Let's all take this back to let's take this entire situation back to Moclus, the homeworld, and we'll have a trial, and we'll debate the issue, and then Moclus will make the decision. Moclus judges will make the decision. So that's what they do. They take everything back. Kelly presents evidence that females are awesome, and the Moclans present evidence that males are awesome, and also they present evidence of saying that you can't keep this child a female because on Moclus they will live a horrible, stunted, deficient life because they won't be accepted, right? And Kelly's like, hey, it's wrong to do this procedure. But Kelly and Ed take it one step further. Ed has one of his crew members scan the entire planet. They find a female on the planet who has contributed through the writing of great books, who was hidden in a cave for decades. She comes forward and presents her evidence that females are awesome, that she is awesome, and that females can contribute to society because she was masquerading as a male author, and they all thought that what she said was awesome. And she's like, like, I tricked you all. You thought I was a male, but I'm a female. See, females are awesome. Now here's the really interesting thing. So, and then at that point, get this. The Moclus listen to both sides, and they say, forget it. This child is going to be given the procedure and be mailed into a male. And that's exactly what happens. The child is given the procedure, turned into a male, given back to Bortus. Bortus and Clyden go back to the Orville to continue to serve for their Federation. By the way, Bortus serves the Federation. Clyden doesn't. And then, but they're together as a pair, and basically they're going to raise this male child now, right? I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away that they went this deep into this topic. And I'm telling you, I never in my life expected that something that Seth MacFarlane would bring forward would have this much depth and would be this compelling, right? So here's my opinion of what they were saying in the show, okay? And I'm going to talk about the things I agree with. All right, they did. Really, it was almost a little bit of it was a minor issue, the issue of the procedure to make the child male or female. What the show was really about was the cave female, the female that had been hidden away in the cave, because Kelly said, "Hey, you would have made it so that so that she was saying, here's a female. This person should have been born a female." And basically, what she's saying is, your entire culture is wrong, and you are using scientific techniques to make it so that an attribute of a child is no longer present in your society. And that is wrong. And I 100% agree. If you use a scientific procedure to say, I don't like this attribute of this child that's about to be born, and so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen, that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And I agree with what, the show was saying about that, okay? And then also, this was fascinating too. In the show, the Moclus representative said, you can't bring this child into the world. It's going to have a terrible life, okay? And, the parents would have struggled against all kinds of prejudices. This person lived in, they would end up living in a cave, right? They would end up living in terrible conditions, right? And so this show was saying, hey, you got a situation where, you're about to have a child, and that situation is not ideal, right? And you want to say, oh, hey, it's not an ideal time, this child isn't going to have everything it possibly needs. It's going to struggle, right, in the situation it's going to be in. The show was saying, no, that's not enough reason for you to use a scientific procedure to say this child should not be. And I was like, holy cows, is this actually being said on a show? I was stunned, because that's exactly what I believe. I believe, if you have a circumstance that's not ideal, and you think that's a reason to make sure that a child, that is the attribute, that the attribute is this child is not going to have every single thing I want to give it, and that's a reason to make sure to use a scientific procedure to make sure that this child never is. No, that's wrong. That's 100% wrong. And that's, in my opinion, what they were saying on the Orville. They were giving that point on the Orville, and I 100% agree with that point. Like, you never know. You don't know the future of a child. You don't know how they're overcome the circumstance that they have. And so I was just blown away. The other thing that I feel that the show was saying was Earth and Moclus are two different planets. Now, in my opinion, it's been on the Orville, planets are an analogy for nations, right? And so if they're an analogy for nations of what happens with nations, then they're saying, hey, two nations that fundamentally disagree can be in coalition. And then what happens is, if those nations come into contact, they should debate both of their points, and they should put forward all their evidence, and then a tribunal of judges should make a decision on whether on what should be done. But at the end of the day, a nation's sovereignty must be respected. And so in the show, the Federation respected Moclus's sovereignty to make the decision they wanted for that child. And I believe it's the same for nations, where if a nation doesn't like what another nation's doing, doesn't matter how many nations, think a different way, nations have sovereignty, and that sovereignty needs to be respected, particularly within coalitions. Actually, I would say only in a coalition. You know, basically, I don't know if nations who are not in coalition really deserve respecting another nation's sovereignty, particularly when they clash. But if you are in a coalition, and that gives even more reason to be in coalition, because you're going to be heard and your sovereignty is going to be respected, right? And if you're not in a coalition as a nation, God help you. So that's my take. That was really my takeaway on what was being said within episode 3 of the Orville. But the thing that's awesome is this was an amazing episode, right? That's my take on the lessons that can be taken away from About a Girl, season 1, episode 3 of the Orville. But the great thing is you might have an idea on what you thought was being said in that show. And a lot of other people, this is content that can be discussed in depth. And that is absolutely brilliant. And I think Seth MacFarlane is knocking it out of the park with this show. Take care.